this time, our topic today will be ransom defense in the age of Industry 4.0. Today with us is a new face that you are not know yet. It is Vasily Bakukruch. He is a seasoned information security architect at Mercedes-Benz Group. He has over 18 years of server development experience. He spent 3 years in REST API development and microservices, Kubernetes, and he has also more than 3 years experience in security assessments, threat modeling. Um, and he is also supporting us in creating cybersecurity assessment for our customers as well as in pen testing. So if you see after the webinar the need to have a cybersecurity and identify your weak points, then he might be the one, if you contact us, who will also help you in this matter. But now, without any further words from my side, I would like to give the word over to you, Vasile, and so that we can finally come to the interesting part of today's webinar.
Thank you very much, Peter. I hope everybody can hear me. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the webinar from today, which is about one of the most pressing issues in modern cybersecurity, the ransomware. Today's presentation, as you can see on the slides, is structured as follows. We have a short introduction, of 2 case studies to warm up. Then we will go a little bit into detail how ransomware works, how you can prevent ransomware attacks, and how you can detect ransomwares, and how you recover after an attack. A few conclusions after these parts, and then hopefully we'll have also a short Q&A part. And let me just now jump in directly to the interesting part. The ransomware, this type of malware, we know it has evolved into the one of the most dangerous threats in the world for businesses and organizations worldwide even. And ransomware works in a sense that it encrypts files and demands a ransom for releasing them. And this can cause immense financial damage for organizations, and it can also potentially shake the trust in a company. We will see later why. With increasing digitization of our age and the networking of the systems, the risk of falling a victim to such an attack also has risen pretty much. Therefore, it is crucial for companies to be thoroughly informed about methods of prevention and how to detect and how to respond to ransomware attacks. So in this webinar, we will provide an analysis of the ransomware threat, and we will try to present best practices for defense and damage mitigation. Let's start with a few case studies from the manufacturing industry. To make the threat of the ransomware more tangible, we will look at 2 representative case studies, cases that made headlines in the late 2020s. The first case is about Honda. Honda, its branches in the USA, Europe, and Japan were hit back in 2020 by the so-called snake ransomware. You might also find this ransomware named as ECANS, the reverse of snake. Don't ask me why. It is documented in the internet. So this attack crippled parts of the production line of Honda, and this led to financial losses. A detailed description of this case you can see also down there in the page from where I having this information. You can feel free and go in and read over about the description. So, as I said, the description of this case highlights the importance of good network segmentation to prevent such attacks. The ransomware exploited vulnerabilities in the network in case of Honda. And due to that, it spread very quickly and affected critical systems. This underscores again why it's very important to divide the network into isolated segments and strictly control the access. Honda had to stop back in 2020 the production and invest significant resources in restoring and securing their systems, demonstrating the importance of a robust security measures and emergency plans to handle such incidents. This is a very important aspect. A second case study is one which is not so well documented. It is of the communication and power industry, CPI. This is a US company who manufactures components for military equipment and supplies also the Department of Defense. I assume that this is the reason that the whole emergency case was not too well documented in the press. This company reportedly paid around $500,000 to the extortionist. They also did not publish what kind of ransomware was used, so this wasn't revealed. But we know in this case that this illustrates again the potential costs and risk associated with such an attack. This case, the CPI case, also highlights the need for close cooperation, law enforcement and cybersecurity experts to analyze the threat and take appropriate countermeasures. Now, after this warm up with a few case studies, let's take a look on how ransomware works. Ransomware attacks, typically go through several phases. The first phase, we name it infection. The attack often begins with the infiltration of the target. This means that frequently phishing mails are sent with malicious attachment or links. These emails are designed to appear trustworthy, to trick the victim into downloading the malware. Alternatively, an infection can also occur via a so-called drive-by download. This is a kind of download which occurs by visiting a website where the malware also has compromised it and waits to be downloaded. In a moment, the victim visits the site. A third possibility to suffer an infection with ransomware are exploit kits and malicious software updates. These are also a very common method to infect systems. Now, an example of phishing attack, as I said, can be an email that pretends to be from a trusted sender, such a bank or a well-known company, and prompts the recipient to click on a link or open an attachment. After the infection, the phase two starts. This is known as the network spread. After successfully infecting the system, the ransomware aims to spread overall in the system. This happens often by exploiting vulnerabilities in the network structure. If you're not good secured, then you might have look into problems. Network flows like unsecured remote desktop protocol, for example, connections or outdated software can also be a problem in this case. Some ransomware variants use also stolen credentials, so not necessarily infecting directly not necessarily misusing the unsecured networks, but they can also buy in a darknet stolen credentials to access the other systems and propagate into the network. An example of using flaws in a network infrastructure, we remember, perhaps this tells you something, the WannaCry ransomware a few years back, which exploited a network flaw in a Windows operating system, the so-called server message block protocol. It was called Eternal Blue, and this was misused to spread very fast in the network, across the whole network. Phase 3 after the encryption, after the infection and spreading, is the encryption of the data. Once the ransomware spread, it begins encrypting the files on the infected systems. So this is actually the phase where the ransomware exploits its strength. Modern ransomware typically uses strong encryptions algorithms like AES, a so-called advanced encryption standard. This is a symmetric encryption standard, or they can use also strong public-private key encryption system like RSA, Reverse Shamir Adelman. This is also used in other parts of the IT landscape. And this makes it nearly impossible, the recovery of the data, without having the encryption keys, the corresponding decryption key, I mean. In many cases, not only local files are encrypted, but also, due to the spread, whole network drives and even cloud storage are encrypted. An example of a ransomware that uses strong encryption is Loki, which combines these two encryption algorithms, AES and RSA, and locks the victim data. The fourth phase I wanted to say is the extortion. Many of the victims are getting aware that they are suffering a malware attack in this phase. Extortion means in this case that after the data was encrypted, the victim is shown a message and it is demanded a ransom to obtain the decryption key. This message often also includes instructions to how to pay, for example, with cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin, for example. This makes the tracking of the money much more difficult. A deadline is also usually set after which the ransom either increases or the data will be permanently lost, deleted. An example of such an extortion message is the one from the crypto-local ransomware, which gave victims normally a 72-hour deadline to pay the ransom, or else the encrypted files would be lost forever. In a latest time, relatively new, appeared so-called double extortion. This can be put as a phase 5 in a ransomware spreading an infection. This means that this double extortion is done in a sense that attackers threaten to publish or to sell the data which was encrypted in case that the ransom will not be paid. This normally increases the pressure on the victim, especially if we are talking here about the sensitive or confidential data. As an example, we can name the ransomware Maze. This is using this tactic and threatens to publish the stolen data if the ransom is not paid. Now, we saw how ransomware works very shortly. Now, let's take a look. What can we do to prevent ransomware attacks? Okay, Peter, thank you. The prevention of a ransomware attack requires actually a multi-layered approach. A first measure would be, and a very important measure, is the employee training and awareness. Since many ransomware attacks are initiated through phishing emails, it is crucial that employees are regularly trained to recognize suspicious emails and to respond appropriately. We know that in a IT landscape, the weakest link in the chain normally are people. You can harden your hardware and software so much you want. You still have the people who are using them, and these people needs to be trained. And these trainings should be practical in a sense that they should include also simulated phishing attacks to test and improves the employees' skills. An increased awareness and vigilance can also stop many attacks from the very beginning of them. For example, companies could regularly conduct training sessions, workshops to inform their employees about the latest phishing techniques and tactics. Additionally, creating a culture of security awareness within the organizations is really essential. Employees should feel responsible for maintaining security because this is a kind of securing their own, if I may say so, existence in the company. In a sense that if the company doesn't exist anymore because due to a ransomware attack was nipped out, then you can even lost your job because financial the financial the amount of financial problems which occur can even force a company to go out of business. This is very important to know. If the employees are properly trained and can report back suspicious activities, then they can also react accordingly. A second measure would be the usage of modern security software like antivirus programs and anti-malware solutions. These are essential defense lines against ransomware. These programs, these solutions should be regularly updated to recognize and block latest threats. Advanced security solutions can be also firewalls or intrusion detection systems and endpoint detection and response systems. These are systems that can detect and block suspicious activities before they are causing any harm in real time. Like an example of an advanced security solution would be an endpoint detection and response system, which could continuously monitor endpoints and detect and respond suspicious activities in real time. Sorry. So, additionally, implementing network security measures like these so-called next-generation firewalls or unified threat management systems can also provide a comprehensive security and protection against various type of cyber threats, not only ransomware. A third and a very important measure, it is even so important with the very first measure, is the active patch management. Outdated software represents normally a significant security gap that ransomware attackers can exploit and will exploit, I can promise you. A rigorous patch management program ensures that all systems applications are regularly updated to close the vulnerabilities. This should include also operating systems and third-party applications. Third-party applications are, for example, BART programs or included libraries or stuff like that. And these are often, how should I put this, entry points for attackers. If we had latest a situation where it was latest. It's about this Log4j vulnerability. This was the late 2021. You remember perhaps This was also in the press and all over the internet. It was discovered in 2021, but you cannot say how long this was kept under the hub and nobody has knew about it. So the issue is, after this thing was discovered, the recommendation was, please update your systems to correct this vulnerability as soon as possible. The people who don't do this, or the companies don't do this, they go into a risk because now the vulnerability is also publicly known. So as I said, as an importance for patch management, we can again give this eternal blue vulnerability, what we already talked about this, which was exploited by this WannaCry ransomware. Back in that years, Microsoft published pretty fast a fix for this problem in the server message protocol. The problem is that many companies didn't apply these patches. And if they would have been applied, all these patches, this could have prevented many infections. So organizations should implement even automated patch management tools to ensure that patches are applied promptly and consistently across all systems. Now, a fourth measures would be the network segmentation and access control. This is also very important. By segmenting the network, the spread of ransomware in the event of an attack, it can be limited. The critical systems and data should not be housed together with other kind of data. They should housed in isolated segments, accessible only to authorized users and authorized applications. Additionally, you should also implement this so-called principle of least privilege. This should be applied everywhere. This means that a user or a kind of application has only so much access rights in general, what is needed to do their job as it should be done. They shouldn't have less or more access rights. For example, if you have a user who needs only reader rights to consult a database, for example, they shouldn't have also write rights or even administrative rights, only the reader rights. If this enables the specific user to do his job appropriately, then he should stick only with so much rights. Another additional security control would be the multi-factor authentication. We know nowadays this is present almost everywhere, starting with online banking, for example. Why shouldn't be using this for accessing sensitive systems? And not only, this should be actually mandatory, multi-factor. A third factor, a fourth factor, it is mandatory. We are used nowadays with this two-factor authentication, in a sense that if you're logging in to some kind of application, you need to prove yourself over another channel, which is normally the phone. So, network segmentation. An example, for network segmentation would be in case of manufacturing lines, for example, that you are separating the office network from the manufacturing network. This can prevent a lot of headaches, in a sense that if one network is attacked and infected, the other one can survive without any kind of problems, if I may so say. We should also review user permissions. This must be done also regularly, because this can lead to the fact that we reduce the risk of unauthorized access. As a fifth measure, we need to leverage the importance of regular and secured backups. Backups are everybody knows what, is one of the most effective measure if it works against ransomware, because they allow that encrypted data can be restored without paying this ransom. It is very important, though, that the backups are regularly and automatically created and stored offline and in a secure cloud, if I may say like that. The environment shouldn't be where the backups are. The environment where the backups are stored shouldn't be directly connected to the main network. The other aspect in case of backups is that they should be regularly tested to ensure that can be used in case of an emergency. I can just say an untested backup is actually no backup, because you may find it out that you cannot restore your data in a moment that you need this backup if it was untested. An example for an effective backup strategy is this so-called 3-2-1 rule. You will find about this a lot of stuff in the internet. This means you're making 3 copies of the data on 2 different media, and 1 copy should be hosted or housed in an external location. Additionally, companies could consider implementing the so-called immutable backups, which cannot be altered or deleted by ransomware. And this provides an extra layer of protection. So much to preventing. Now that we saw how we could prevent ransomware attacks, let's shortly take a look on how to detect and to respond ransomware attacks. I'll switch over. So detecting and responding the ransomware attack implies a few mandatory steps or measures. I must say here that even the best prevention measure cannot guarantee that a ransomware attack will be completely prevented. This is the same thing as in saying that 100% security does not exist. You need to take in account that remaining risk is each and every time there. So it is important to be well prepared for detection and response. A first measure would be the establishing of an early detection and alerting system. The ability to detect an attack at an early stage is crucial, because this can limit the damage very much. Modern security information and event management systems, the so-called CM systems, play a role here. These systems are monitoring the network and the systems, the activities which are going on there in real time, and immediately can alert to suspicious activities. Uh, Another system would be the so-called anomaly detection system. This can also identify unusual behavior that indicates a ransomware attack. As I said, an example of early detection and alerting system includes intrusion detection systems. These systems are monitoring the network traffic and are able to identify, to detect suspicious activities that may indicate an attack. The already mentioned CM systems, these are systems, as I said, they are collecting and analyzing log data from various sources to detect threats in real time. So another possibility would be an event detection and management system. These systems are focusing on detecting and managing security events. You can also buy a service. It's called Managed Detection and Response. These are services that are providing continuous monitoring and response to threats by external security experts. So this is a service. Similar to that, you can also use an extended detection and response solution. This is also similar to this already mentioned CM system. This solution, this extended detection and response solution, this integrates data from various security sources and they can comprehensively detect and respond to threats. A second measure after a ransomware attack was detected is the measure of the rapid isolation and containment. Once an attack is detected, the affected system must be immediately isolated to prevent a further spread of the ransomware. This can be done either by disconnecting the network connectivity of the system or shutting down infected systems. Disconnecting the network activity not necessarily means that you need to shut down the system. Main thing is you are isolating it completely from the rest of the network. Additionally, access to compromised systems should be also immediately blocked by to deny attacker access. This means that you can seize every kind of access to the systems administrative in an administrative way, I mean. An example of a rapid isolation would be, as I said, the immediate disconnection of the infected computer from the network, and this will prevent the ransomware from spreading to other systems. Furthermore, organizations should have predefined incident response plans. One example would be not necessarily in case of ransomware, but I think each and every bigger company has a so-called disaster recovery plan, for example. Something similar would be this reaction plan to ransomware attacks too. These plans outlines the steps which needs to be taken in event of a ransomware attack, and this would ensure a swift and coordinated response in this case. A third measure is, and an important one, is the so-called triage and prioritization of response. After the systems are contained, the infected systems are contained, the affected system must be analyzed to assess the extent of the damage in the very first place. This includes identifying the encrypted data and determining which systems are more critical for the business operations. And this is happening, this so-called triage phase, because you need to restore for the very first the systems which are essential for your survival, if I may put it like that. So the restoration of these systems should be a top priority to resume business operations as quickly as possible. So you could start with restoring systems essential to business operations, such as production systems or financial databases in the very first place. And organizations should establish also, in this case, clear criteria for prioritizing the recovery of the systems and the data which was affected. You need to take in account many factors such as business impact, regulatory requirements, and customer needs in this case. And the triage helps to that, to prioritize what system or which system will be restored for the very first, in the very first place. A second measure, which is very, very important and has effects on the trust in the organization, how the organization is perceived outside, is a clear communication and crisis management. A clear and effective communication is very essential in a crisis situation because as I said, this has a lot of this can how should I say this? This could affect very much how the company is publicly perceived and the trust in the company. All affected parties should be included in this communication strategy, not only the IT department. The management should be there because they need to take heavy decisions. The legal department should be also implied because they can know what needs to be done to stay in the boundary of the permitted rules and laws. External service provider, if you are having third-party providers, they should also be included because you need to deal with them if the software which was infected comes from there. And possibly you might need to include also law enforcement. They should be informed and involved in this response. A regular update on the progress of the recovery measures and the remaining risks are also crucial to maintain the confidence in the crisis management of the organization. So you need to establish a crisis team that regularly informs about the progress of recovery measures and coordinates decisions. Organizations should also have communication plans developed. So you shouldn't invent this in a moment that you are needing it. You should think about these things before something happens. Like this disaster recovery plan, you don't invent this in a case that a disaster occurs. You have it before the disaster comes, though the name disaster recovery plan. So back to the subject. As I said, companies should develop communication plans that outline how communication with internal and external stakeholders during a ransomware attack goes, ensuring transparency and maintaining trust. I mean, most organizations are doing this well, but we can mention here also an example where this wasn't done so well. If you remember, this made also headlines, the problem with Sony back in 2011. They had this PlayStation Network outage, and around 77 million data sets containing personally identifiable information and financial information about the customers were stolen. And the customers couldn't also not access the affected services. The problem in the communication of Sony was that they didn't recognize that data was stolen. So this theft was not announced in a timely manner. And this led sadly to a loss of trust in case of Sony in this company. They made a lot of, they struggled a lot after that to regain the trust in their company. As a fifth step in detect and response to an attack is the forensic analysis and evidence preservation. If an attack occurred during the response to this ransomware attack, all relevant evidence must be secured to determine the cause of the attack and provide for possible legal actions. This includes among other things, collecting log data, analyzing the attack vector, identifying the vulnerabilities that were exploited, and so on. This data is also valuable later if you need to optimize your security measures in a company. An example of forensic analysis is for examining log files to determine how the ransomware entered in the system and which vulnerabilities were exploited. Additionally, organizations should consider engaging eventually external forensic experts to conduct a thorough investigation and provide recommendations for improving the security posture of the company. As I said, in many cases, companies often face also the difficult decision. This is not on the slide, but I need to mention this, the payment of the ransom, of the demanded ransom. This is a very difficult decision. As I said, this is the reason, one of the reasons why the management also should be implied in the communication. The decision on ransom payments, this should be carefully weighed while considering legal, ethical, and financial implications. I need to underline here that, as I said, important to remember that paying the ransom does not guarantee that the restoration of the data and will go well. And this also encourage future attacks. Involving a legal expert and the law enforcement in this decision is also essential because they might have been dealt already with even with the same attacker, and they know perhaps better what to do. An example of weighing the decision if you want to pay or not is to consider the risks and the costs of paying the ransom on the other side and compared with restoring the data from backups. This is also a costly action if you have the backups. If not, then you might think about paying the ransom. But as I said, you don't have any guarantee that the the crypting of your data will also go well. Furthermore, I would say organizations should develop also policies and guidelines how to handle ransom demands, and this will ensure that decisions are made based on a thorough assessment of the situation, and not based on some kind of assumptions, and in consultation with the relevant stakeholders. This is also important. They might have a word to say in this issue. Organizations might also include external experienced negotiators that are well vetted and know how to conduct such negotiation of this ransom. There are also examples where a ransom demand could have been reduced with 50%, so to the half of it. So don't rush and pay. First, keep a cool head and think about what needs to be done. Now, we saw now what is all about detection and response. Let's take a quick look now on how to recover if this thing happened, then we have to think about recovery. So after a ransomware successfully, it was successful for attacker, not for the customer. The focus of the customer, of the organization, is how to restore the business operations and how to prevent further future incidents, because you cannot rule out that you will be attacked again, especially if you pay the ransom, you know. This could encourage the attackers. So this is done respecting a few steps in the order I will tell about that. And as a first step is the restoration of the data and the systems. This needs to be done by cleaning up the infected systems to ensure that no ransomware components are still active. The encrypted data can be restored from secure backups. Hopefully, you have a secured backup. It is important to perform also recovery gradually to ensure that the malware do not re-enter the system. You should recover one system after the other and take time to check each and every system for possible remaining ransomware components, because you need to eliminate them. Also, organizations should document all these steps to ensure that later on lessons learned can be applied to future incidents. And this is also serving to provide a clear record of the steps taken. As a second step is the analysis of vulnerabilities and security gaps. As I mentioned, after the recovery was done, the vulnerabilities that enabled the attack should be analyzed and fixed. This can be done via security audits, penetration tests, and reviewing the security policies of the company. The insights gained here should be used to improve the security infrastructure and for preventing future attacks. For example, the remaining vulnerabilities that led to this attack can be found either via, as I said, security analysis or via penetration test. You need to identify them and fix them because otherwise you will be suffering another attack. The companies should also consider to implement a so-called continuous vulnerability management program to regularly assess and address security gaps, ensuring that the systems are remaining secure over time. The third step is the long-term monitoring and security improvement of the system. Even after a recovery, you need to monitor your system further because you need to rule out that future attacks and future attacks will be occurring, and you also need to improve your security posture in a sense that you need to continuously update your system to stay at the state of the art of the software, for example. And this can be also achieved by this long time monitoring. This is, for example, also can be achieved by implementing a ZM system, what we already mentioned. Such a system can continuously monitor networks and the system and all the activities going on there and can alert to suspicious activities in real time. Additionally, if you consider, you can also establish some metrics and KPIs to measure how effective your security program are and so on. As a fourth step, and it is an important one, is the creation of a final report. This final report should contain a detailed report about the entire incident, including how the attack occurred, how it was responded to, and what measures were taken for damage control and recovery. This report can serve not only for internal follow-ups, like lessons learned and so on, but they can also be important for stakeholders and regulatory authorities, and even for law enforcement. As I said, every step needs to be documented because this can be and should be used for improving your security posture, your compliance rules, and your security rules, practices in the company to prevent future incidents. This report can also used in the step 5 for improvement of your emergency plans and security policies. So, as I said, the incident should be used to revise the existing emergency plans and security policies because they need to be up to date, and this can be done only if you are regularly check them and updating them. These emergency plans need, as I said, needs to be updated. You also need to optimize your backup strategies if you didn't had any kind of or only incipient phase of backup strategies. You need to adjust also the employee trainings if it turns out that this kind of attack occurred over a phishing mail, for example. So the goal is to prepare the organization to be better against future threats and improve the response capabilities of the organization. You can do for that regular trainings, emergency drills, so-called tabletop exercises with involved actors to rehearse the emergency plans and to make them better. Additionally, organizations should establish also an incident response or the incident response playbooks, not only one, more than one, that provide detailed guidance how to handle different type of ransomware attacks. This will ensure a consistent and an effective response not only to ransomware but also for other uh, security issues. After recovering, you can also use the opportunity to strengthen the security culture in the company. This can be done by intensifying the training, promoting security awareness, and involving employees in developing a strong security culture. Because a strong security culture is the foundation for an effective and thorough defense against cyber threats. So the organization should encourage proactive approach to security. Security costs money. This is also an aspect needs to be mentioned here. But if you invest, you will find a balance and invest the necessary money into security. This will return to you as a better, because your security posture will be enhanced to that. Okay, where were we? Recovery. So it is necessary to include in the training, in the updating of the emergency plans, and so on. Now, after all this has been said, we can conclude that ransomware indeed it is a serious threat for companies and requires a comprehensive and proactive defense strategy. The prevention is, as I said, a key for minimizing the risk and of an attack. Uh, you need to have also well prepared personnel for handling potential incidents and to respond quickly and in effective mode to an emergency. As I said, this isn't only assuming that you are using state-of-the-art software and security software, but also need to have, if I may say so, a robust security cultures in a company, which involves the employees. Because as I said at the very beginning too, the people are the weakest link in the chain. So, ladies and gentlemen, uh, this is a short digression, what I wanted to tell you about ransomware. And I hope that you have enjoyed it. And as I said, in the next 10, 15 minutes, Peter can say it better. I'm available now for questions. So back to you, Peter. Thank you very much for your
Yeah,
attention.
thank you, Vasily, for the great presentation of that interesting topic. Um, and now let's go directly to the QA session. We have until now only one question, but if you also have other questions, you can also type it in the chat until um, the QA session is over or while Vasily is answering the question. The question is, can ransomware attacks be implied on a web app that is not used over internet and have been just used internally by an organization? Okay.
It can be in a sense that if I repeat the question, I understood that your web application is somehow very well closed up. You don't have any kind of internet access to that. Correct me if I'm wrong, Peter.
That's correct.
And but nevertheless, people are having access to this one. And the people are accessing this web application from their laptop, from their desktop, from their mobile phone, and so on. And these devices are connected to the internet. You are receiving emails, you are surfing, and so on. If your device a mobile device or your laptop is affected and ransomware switch in there, it can spread over the internal network, the so-called intranet, and affect your web application too. And at the end, you will have the same effect as you would have got the infection from the internet. Normally, it comes from the internet, either by a phishing mail or over social engineering. It doesn't has to be necessary phishing mail. It can be also uh, I don't know, somebody is getting somehow access to credentials via social engineering. We remember back in the 90s or start of 2000 about this American social engineer, David Mitnick, who was really good in getting out from the people the credentials and break into the system. So the fact that your systems is properly uh, closed in your intranet is no guarantee that it cannot be attacked. Does this answer the questions?
I think so, yes.
Okay.
Great, thank you, Dan. Actually, surprisingly for me, there is no other question yet at the moment.
Well, let's put it like that. If questions will arise later, certainly, Peter, you could collect them, and we will
Absolutely.
try to answer them per mail. You know, it's no problem. I know this was a lot of information in a short time. It took me more than planned. We planned to have this webinar, the technical part, around 35, 40 minutes. It turned out to be 50. Sorry for that, but I still think this is an interesting issue. So if you don't have any kind of other questions, then I will hand
I
over
have
to,
one
please.
new question.
Good.
Um, and that question is, so of the that better choice are SaaS apps.
SaaS apps are normally cloud-based software as a service offerings, and for many things regarding the underlying infrastructure, the software updates and the whole stuff, this is taken care by the cloud provider normally. This is contractually agreed on. So you don't have to update your operating system and you don't have to update your software what you're using. Let's give an example. If you're uh, buying in Azure a subscription to a Power BI instance, then this Power BI will be on the latest version. It is updated with every security updates, and the underlying infrastructure is also taken care by Azure, by Microsoft. This is the name. This is in the name, software as a service. You don't care about the infrastructure and the software updates. This is taken care by the cloud service provider. But this doesn't rules out that if you, as a customer, are doing silly things and infect your software, then it might have the result that your data is still encrypted, even if the system is well protected by Microsoft. To break in there, it's heavier than in a normal application, but it does not rules out. So you have to be you have to be no matter when uh, precautious. Don't push and don't click on unknown mails and links and so on. For example, don't visit internet sites which are not checked, or you know what I mean. Drive-by download. It can happen on the fly. You don't even know about it. But as I said, it is a little bit secure because the updates and the infrastructure is taking care. But nevertheless, you can still ruin the data due to even malicious with malicious thoughts. So you might go in there and say, now I'm logging in and I will encrypt the data myself. It can happen. Does this answer the question?
For me, it does. In the chat, I'm not seeing that, but again, if there are follow-up questions which come up later, we can also always answer them via email, because at the moment in the chat I only see those two questions. So which means then we're a little bit over time, but at the end of our webinar now. And yes, there is the answer. Yes, thank you for your yes. Okay. And there's also, I did not want to hide it, a thank you for your invitation and valuable webinar. So Vasily, that goes to you with your valuable webinar. Thank you for having us here. And here on the last slide, you can also see my email address. So again, if you have later on questions, you can always reach out to me, and we will try the best to help you and to answer all your questions. Also, I will add a second email address here, which you will see in a second on the screen. And it's here, contact at W-ITC. That is also an email address where you can always reach out to us. If you, again, want to have a cybersecurity assessment or a security assessment, please also feel free to contact us, or in any other questions regarding to cybersecurity or regarding to ALM, because that's also another thing that we are doing, but that was not the topic of today's webinar. Then again, Vasily, thank you all. Thank everybody for participating, and I wish you all a productive and good rest of the day, I would say.
Thank you also, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you enjoyed it. See you next time.